Coming off of a really solid performance in Summer League last night, on today's Locked On Kings podcast, we're going to learn more about Kings rookie Colby Jones from his head coach at Xavier, Sean Miller.
You are Locked On Kings, your daily Sacramento Kings podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, it is that time for another episode of Locked On Kings.
Hello and welcome into Locked On Kings, your podcast hub for Sacramento Kings coverage all offseason long. My name is Matt George. I have the privilege of being your host here. I'm a Sacramento sports reporter and producer for ABC 10 News. And I'll be honest with you, last night's Kings Summer League game against the Los Angeles Clippers, it was a tough watch. Without Keegan Murray, the offense of this Summer League squad is significantly worse. No surprise there with how good Keegan Murray is, of course. But you would expect things to be a little bit better than what the Kings showed, especially in that brutal second quarter last night against the Clippers. Now, the good news is, as much as the Kings would love to win their third Summer League title, winning games in the Summer League isn't as important as certain individual players who likely will have roster spots or do have an opportunity at the NBA, seeing them perform well. And that's what we got out of Colby Jones last night. I thought he looked really, really solid. For the majority of the game, Luke Lautz, the Summer League head coach for the Kings, credited Colby for really being the only one bringing the intensity and bringing that effort on offense that the Sacramento Kings needed throughout the entire night. He finished with 19 points, 9 rebounds, 2 assists, 2 steals, 2 blocks, shot 8 of 13 from the field, showed off that 3-point game too, with 3 of 7 from 3-point range. So a lot from that Colby Jones performance last night to be excited about and to take away from. When you watch Colby, the reality is, even though he's an older rookie, like, he's going to be fighting and really scratching and clawing for, at best, a very end of the rotation spot. Like if Mike Brown has a 9 or 10 man rotation, which I believe he's going to have, Colby Jones is going to be fighting to sneak his way into that 10th and final spot at this point in time. That doesn't mean that he's not likely going to play at all next season, but I wouldn't expect Colby Jones to be inserted into the Kings rotation right away. But you can see through watching Colby Jones play, theoretically, how he could fit, how at times he could handle the ball himself, how defensively he can certainly help the Kings with his defense on the wing, how he can space the floor with De'Aaron Fox out there, but is also capable of attacking the basket. And then his rebounding. Like, his rebounding is so solid for his size that's something the Sacramento Kings absolutely could use and could benefit from. So love what I saw out of Colby Jones last night in Summer League, hoping to see more of that as the Kings are back in action tonight. I think they're taking on the Chicago Bulls. So maybe the final score can be a little bit better. Maybe the game can be a little bit more entertaining, but I'm hoping to see more out of Colby Jones. I also thought Keon Ellis looked really solid, was doing a good job making the right decisions, putting the ball on the floor and attacking when he needed to, hitting that outside shot when he needed to as well. It was cool to see the connection, the alley-oop connection between Jordan Ford and Keon Ellis right out of the gate to put the Kings on the board as their first 2 points of the game. So there's positives to take away from last night's tough watch loss to the Los Angeles Clippers. On today's show, though, instead of hearing me just blab about Colby Jones, because I know a decent amount about the guy through the research that I've done and through now watching him play in Summer League a little bit, I don't know nearly as much as his head coach at Xavier, Sean Miller. Nice enough to join me here on the Locked On Kings podcast. This is a really fun conversation. Sean was excellent. And I'm telling you, if you're not excited about Colby Jones and what he could be for the Sacramento Kings, you can be realistic about what his role is likely going to be in maybe his lack of playing time right away, but still be excited about what he could potentially be for the Kings. If you weren't excited already, I think this conversation with Sean Miller will get you excited, learning about not just the player, but the person that Colby Jones is. So without any further ado, here is my conversation with the head coach of Xavier men's basketball, Sean Miller. The more we see Colby Jones in Summer League, the more Sacramento Kings fans get excited about what he can be for the Sacramento Kings. But Colby Jones has been tearing it up for Xavier for years. He has definitely earned this opportunity in the NBA. And to tell us a little bit more about what Colby Jones brings to the NBA, his head coach from Xavier, Sean Miller, joins me here. It's a pleasure, Coach, to talk to you. Thank you so much for joining me. First and foremost, what are the Sacramento Kings, and specifically Sacramento Kings fans, this city, what are they getting in Colby Jones, both the basketball player and the person?
Well, I'll start with the person. Colby is as great of a leader, as a teammate, just as a person as I've been around. He's the best of the best. Has the way he carries himself would be kind of an upperclassman who's almost like, if you can imagine, doesn't play but is thrilled to be a part of your organization and team. That's how he carries himself. Just doesn't have a big ego, is willing to do whatever you ask of him, whether it's those small things, the big things off the court. Was an excellent student. As a matter of fact, is going to graduate from Xavier in a little over 3 years. And I think sometimes what defines Colby is, he wasn't a high school McDonald's All-American. It wasn't as if he, since he's been 12, 13, 14 years old, told that he's the best of everything. He's really quietly built his own brand and his game, and came to Xavier somewhat understated. In terms of on the court, he was very well coached as a high school player. You saw that right away. I only coached Colby for 1 year. And in the year that we were together, again, back to my point, whatever we asked of him, he did. He put in a ton of work before practice and after practice in the off season to improve his shooting. And once that became a part of his overall game, then, I think the rest is history, because there's not a more well-rounded player that you're going to get in this year's NBA draft than Colby Jones. I really mean it. He checks the box. Excellent offensive and defensive rebounder, guarded the other team's best perimeter player, whether that was a point guard or a big small forward or a shooter. He drew the assignment game in, game out. On offense, he led our team in assists as a 6'5", wing player. Not many players can say that. And then he shot in the high 30% from three, obviously led our team to the Sweet 16. So incredibly well-rounded as a player, somebody who checks the box in almost all areas. And then off the court, I just can't explain to you or put it into words, the maturity, the unselfish nature, and what a great person he is.
I want to get back to the well-rounded part of his game in a second, but you mentioned, Coach, just the 1 year that you spent with him. What was that transition like for yourself and for him in changing coaches and adapting maybe to a new system? And how do you expect him to do that at the NBA level, now incorporating himself into Mike Brown's system in Sacramento?
Yeah, I think a year ago was a great training ground for what Colby's about ready to do as an NBA rookie, learning a new system and a new game, really, right? But number one, Colby is very smart. Sometimes a guy that's smart in the classroom, that doesn't mean he's smart on the basketball court, vice versa. He happens to be able to do both. He's very, very bright off the court, and he's also very bright on the court. And I think that's something that really stood out for me. He's a very willing learner, but he learns easily. And that's something that Mike Brown will fall in love with. And if you watch him here early on, I would say that the Sacramento Kings are probably already well aware of that, dealing with him even in summer league. So I think his intelligence and his willingness to just do what the coach wants, those two things come very, very easy to him. And I think that he'll hit the ground running as a young player.
One of the elements of Colby Jones that I find to be rare, and correct me if I'm wrong, Coach, or you can add context to this, for someone who is the star of their team, the leader of their team, he has such a willingness to do whatever is asked of him, or to share the basketball or get his teammates involved or make the little plays and do the hard work on the defensive end that doesn't necessarily show up in the stat sheet. Like, can you speak to the unselfishness of Colby Jones and maybe how he can be a Swiss Army knife in the NBA to where even immediately he can adapt and change his game or do the things that are necessary to the Kings winning and to getting him playing time even as a rookie?
Yeah, I think the stat that really jumps out, to back up, what you just said was, he had 158 assists as a 6'5" wing player, combo guard. Not many of those types of players lead your team in assists. And to do that, you have to have the skill level, but you also have to have the know-how. And I think one of the things that's really going to help Colby have a great career is he's highly intelligent on the court. Like, he really understands the game, both on offense and on defense. And if you watched him play in college, there were times when you could have made the statement that he was the Big East's best rebounding guard, best rebounding wing player, whether that's on the offensive glass, defensive glass. Statistically, he's had games against America's best teams just from a rebound perspective that really gets your attention. And you think about what I said about his assist. The final piece for Colby, though, was just developing confidence in his shot and shooting the ball more often, regularly, not only in games, but in practice, etc. Falling in love with that part of the game. I'm going to improve my shooting. And he put a lot of work in leading into last season, and it translated. A year earlier, he was a 29% college three-point shooter. This year, for most of the year, he was right at around 38%, at times even higher. And I think the work that he's put in this spring and summer, leading into where he's at right now, he's just going to continue to grow in that area. So when you add his shooting ability to the things that you mentioned, the well-roundedness and all the other things that he does, including his mindset defensively, you have a unique young player where I think a lot of times the NBA has to take the responsibility to teach. Colby will show up very, very well-versed, almost like an older veteran. I think you'll find that to be the case. That'll be one of his greatest strengths.
Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is brought to you by Birddogs. Birddogs makes you look good. Their stretch khaki pants and shorts are perfect for everyday wear, but they look nice enough also for you to use them if you're dressing up a little bit. I've shared with you that I've used their khaki shorts and their shorts in general when I'm going out golfing. I think they're really, really comfortable golf shorts, not too hot. You can maneuver around in them. They're very, very comfortable and something that I've included into my everyday wardrobe. They're also great vacation shorts, by the way, too, using them when I was down in Cancun on the cruise to Mexico. If you want to check out all of their products, all of their comfortable pants, shorts, all of the products that they have to offer, you can go out to birddogs.com/lockedonnba right now. And if you find something that you want, which I almost guarantee you will, you can enter our promo code LockedOnNBA for a free Yeti-style tumbler with your first purchase. That's birddogs.com/lockedonnba or promo code LockedOnNBA for a free Yeti-style tumbler. It's really cool. I have one. You won't want to take your bird dogs off. I absolutely promise you that. Colby's coming off of a game where he shot the ball really well in Vegas Summer League last night. So we saw some of that on display. Coach, that to make such a big jump in 1 year from, like you mentioned, 29% to flirting just shy of 38%. How much of that was confidence? And what I really wanted to ask you about was, like, how was his shot selection? Because looking at film and stuff like that, it seemed like even shots that he's missing, he's taking good shots. He wasn't necessarily forcing things from the perimeter, which sometimes you'll see players do when they're trying to work themselves out of a little shooting funk.
Yeah, no doubt. He took great shots this year. I think in some ways the secret sauce. You take good ones, you have a better opportunity to make them. But, he shot a high percentage from two. I mean, he shot over 50% from two, which in my experience as a college coach, that's a stat from a guard that you look at, because to me, those are the guys that seem to translate and are able to have an NBA type of career. Can you really score at a high level in college inside the arc? And Colby's was able to do that. His three-point shooting improved, no doubt. He took better shots and he took more of them as well. that's the other part of the confidence. If you're taking one a game, you take a game off, come back, you take two, take three in a game, then take two more games where you barely take any. You can only be so good. If you look at his attempts, he was very consistent in taking, multiple threes each game. And I think his percentage reflected the quality and the confidence and also the improvement. I mean, he put a lot of work in. And I think that's the other part of Colby that we didn't really address. He's got a great work ethic. I mean, he'll be in the gym and whatever the Kings ask him to improve, he'll be hard at work to make sure that he does that. Again, when you're bright, you're unselfish, you're a winner. Colby won in high school, a big reason that we won this past year. And, we were 15-5 in the Big East. And we were in the Sweet 16. We won 27 games. Last year, the Big East, clearly one of America's great conferences with UConn in it. We beat UConn twice. Again, Colby had a lot to do. He was in the center of it all.
Thank you for bringing up his rebounding earlier, because that might be the thing that excites me the most and a lot of people here in Sacramento the most about his game. That was a weakness of the Sacramento Kings last season, to a point where Mike Brown was asking and demanding everybody rebound as a team, not just relying on the bigs to clean up the glass. What makes Colby Jones such a good rebounder for his size?
Well, he's physical and he's got great ability. I mean, he goes after the ball. He's not scared of contact at all. To me, rebounding for him comes very naturally. He'll rebound his position, and that's something that I think he's done his entire career.
I don't know how familiar you are with the Sacramento Kings. They finally ended their playoff drought and now are looking to turn the page towards turning into a championship contender. So this is a two-part question. The first part is based off your knowledge of the Kings, like his fit with De'Aaron Fox as a shooter, and like, what do you think about his fit in Sacramento and his ability to impact winning? And then like the second part of that is to be an older rookie, which is something that Monty McNair, Kings general manager, actually tends to gravitate towards. He likes older rookies that come in with maybe a little more of an NBA-ready body and can make more of an immediate impact versus being kind of a developmental project. How do you think Colby Impact can actually impact winning right away?
Well, I could speak to a couple of things. From a physical perspective, strength, conditioning, Colby's 5% body fat. He's over 200 pounds, 6'5". I mean, he's as physically strong as you're going to get leaving college and going to the next level. I mean, that's already a done deal there. And you're right, he's a little bit older and mature. But no, I would think, and just me knowing Mike Brown from a distance and as a coach, he loves skill level. He loves ball movement. Loves the ball having energy and unselfish team play. That really jumps off the page when you watch the Kings play. They have a great pace, but the ball moves and they're really unselfish. They share it. Colby instinctively is that type of player. Like, that's not something that will take him very, very long to fit in and feel out. He's going to understand concepts right away. And he's a two-way player. He has the know-how and the body and the physicality to defend, especially comparing him to other rookies. And I also think, the style of play that he has, leading our team in assists, being able to do a lot of different things, being a smart player, he'll fit right into Mike Brown's system. And look, I think when the coach and the staff learn to trust you, that you know what to do and how to do it, that's almost half the battle for a young player. And that's something I'm very confident in that Colby will bring to the table.
Today's episode of the Locked On Kings podcast is also brought to you by BetterHelp. Therapy and mental health is extremely important in 2023. I was a skeptical non-believer in therapy, and it wasn't that I didn't think therapy could help me. It was that I didn't think my problems were big enough or serious enough to require therapy. And I think that's a big deal to a lot of people. Like, of course, anyone who has any kind of mental illness that they're dealing with, or anyone who's battling like depression or has some serious trauma or issues like that they need to unpack, therapy is phenomenal. And I not just encourage you, I implore you to go and give therapy a try if you're battling with anything like that. But a lot of us are just dealing with like small things in daily life that frustrate us, or that bother us, get under our skin a little bit, or that we don't necessarily know how to handle or how to get over. It could be a wide range of things. And therapy can help you get through and handle all of them in a healthy way. It's a great way of taking care of yourself, just like going to the gym is. I encourage you to give therapy a try. And if you're thinking of starting therapy, use BetterHelp. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. You fill out a brief questionnaire, get matched with a licensed therapist. And here's the cool part. If for some reason the therapist that you get matched with right away doesn't click with you, because it's important to have a good, strong connection with that therapist, like I do with mine, TJ. If it doesn't necessarily work for you right away, then you can switch and find and look for another therapist and kind of try different ones out for no extra cost. Let therapy be your map with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA to get 10% off of your first month. That's BetterHelp, HELP.com/LockedOnNBA. A lot of the narrative on draft night or after draft night was the Sacramento Kings got a first-round talent in Colby Jones early in the second round. They were able to make a good trade with their actual pick and find a way to move up in the second round to grab Colby, which suggests how much the Kings actually wanted him. But from your perspective, Coach, watching him for the whole last season, front row seat on the bench, was there a moment for you this season, or maybe a compilation of moments, and maybe it happened even in practice, where it was like, yeah, Colby is ready for this next step. And specifically, if you could share like details of what you saw that said he's ready.
Yeah, I think the true test, if you're in a great conference like we are here at Xavier in the Big East, road games are very, very difficult. You're going against an angry crowd, a passionate, rabid fan base. In our conference, we're very fortunate. You think about the arenas we play in, they're sold out. Many of them are NBA arenas. You learn a lot about your team. You learn a lot about your best players in that environment. Those moments of truth, January, February basketball in the Big East Conference on the road in a meaningful game. And, at Marquette this past year, we had a couple injuries and we're playing really shorthanded. I didn't really know how it was going to go. Marquette obviously was an excellent team, crazy fan base, packed house. And Colby really willed us to the finish line. We ended up losing the game on a tip-in, but the only reason that we were in it was simply because he just rose to the challenge and played at the highest level you can play at as a college player, where he literally did everything for us when we were shorthanded. Ditto late in the year at Providence. Providence was playing meaningful games, one of their last home games, playing for the NCAA tournament. They had won, I think, 35 in a row. And again, Colby really put us on his back, especially in the second half of that game. And he was the best player on the court. And, when you do it in front of the crowd, the away crowd, against a great opponent, a really good coach in meaningful games, that's when I think I've always felt like that translates to being that next level player. And Colby was able to show that really time and time again in those big games that we had a year ago. I go back to UConn. UConn obviously won the national championship, and he had a great group. In both games against UConn, Colby was terrific, both on defense and on offense.
Finally, Coach, speaking of the crowd, De'Aaron Fox has spoken before about how the Sacramento fan base reminds him so much of Kentucky, reminds him so much of a college town because of just the kind of one major sport atmosphere, how rowdy the fans get. Can we expect Xavier fans to follow Colby here to Sacramento? Maybe see some Xavier jerseys. I think I saw, or we had a couple pictures of a few Xavier jerseys actually at the California Classic in the Golden One Center a couple weeks ago. But how much can Sacramento Kings fans expect Xavier fans to be involved in Kings fandom now and following Colby and through his NBA journey?
Yeah, Matt, if you know anything about our program, we don't have a football program on our campus, a Jesuit school of 6,000 students, basketball has been the front porch of our university for almost 4 decades. We've been in different conferences along the way, but you think about Tyrone Hill, Brian Grant played with the Kings, James Posey, David West, many, many players between then and Colby. But whether it's our student section or our fans, when you say Xavier University, it's synonymous with college basketball. So Colby's a long way from home, being on the West Coast, but I don't think you have to worry about Xavier fans all over the world supporting Colby as an NBA player and really supporting the Sacramento Kings because they chose him and they made a wise move.
Well, Coach, congratulations to you. It's a testament to yourself and your program and the university, the player in person that Colby is. We look forward to seeing him in Kings Purple consistently, especially helping this team hopefully bring a championship to Sacramento one day. It was an absolute pleasure to talk to you. Hopefully we can stay in touch and chat about Colby as his journey continues, but I appreciate you taking the time, sir. Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Matt. I'm glad to be on with you.
It was a pleasure talking with Coach Miller. Really enjoyed just chatting with him about Colby Jones, and it was great to hear also a little bit about the Xavier fan base and the Xavier program there at the end. I saw plenty of Keegan Murray, Iowa jerseys inside the Golden One Center last season. Would love to see some Colby Jones Xavier jerseys there as well. If you're a Xavier fan listening to this podcast, maybe it's the first time, welcome. Love having you here. Hope you'll stick around. Hope the Sacramento Kings will become your team now that Colby Jones is here and hopefully here to stay and help the Sacramento Kings win a championship. So welcome in. I appreciate you. In fact, if you're new, if you're a fan of Xavier, a fan of Colby Jones's, let me know. Hit me up in the comment section, or if you're watching on YouTube at Matt, or you can find me on Twitter at Matt George Sack, or email me mattgeorgesports@gmail.com. But Coach Miller was phenomenal. It was excellent to speak with him and talk a little bit of basketball on Colby Jones with him. And like I said, you probably are more excited about Colby Jones now. Even if you were excited about him before, you're probably more excited about him now after hearing from Coach Miller. Appreciate that conversation. Appreciate him taking the time here, despite being very busy, even though it is the off season for him. So next, the Kings and the Bulls tonight. And I also have coming up later this week a conversation with Tony East from the Locked On Pacers podcast, learning a little bit more about Chris Duarte. And Tony is going to share with us why he feels that this trade for the Sacramento Kings was a great trade for them. So we'll talk to him about that going forward, plus more great guests, more great content coming for you here on the Locked On Kings podcast. Can't wait to have you join me on the next episode. Until then, my name is Matt George. You've been listening to Locked On Kings, part of the Locked On Podcast Network.